Katie, I think the lecture mic is turned off.
I assumed that was in your hands. Okay. But I should look for the light. All right, I will begin that again, so everyone hears from the beginning.
Look to the light.
To bring us into worship this morning, I invite everyone to participate in a blessing that we have shared in classes with our children and youth. And from here in the chapel this morning, I would like all of you folks, and from home or wherever you might be tuning in online today, please repeat after me. I will lead, and Patty will lead those in the repetition. It is a blessing to be.
It is a blessing to be.
It is a blessing to be here.
It is a blessing to be here.
It is a blessing to be here now.
It is a blessing to be here now.
It is a blessing to be here now together.
It is a blessing to be here now together.
Thank you. Around us, light is returning. It rekindles the spirit of life in the skeletons of trees. It brings forth new shoots in the soil. It wakes us from our winter slumber and invites us to see what lies beyond. We light this chalice in the spirit of the earth's awakening and to reaffirm our commitment to the value of our earth home. We light this chalice remembering that we are home, remembering with gratitude, beyond measure gratitude, that we are home. We light our chalice remembering those in the world who are not home, who flee from destruction of a home country, home communities, homes stolen, security stolen, lives stolen. May light and support reach out and enfold all who need it. So good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. To everyone attending, however you are attending, welcome to Eastrose Fellowship Unitarian Universalist on this beautiful first Sunday in April 2022. This morning, I'm going to ask you folks here in the chapel to help welcome everyone that is out there, and in a way that we, similar to what we were used to doing for so long in this chapel, turning and greeting our neighbors, right? Remember back when, okay? Now, a lot of you are kind of seated back, but we are going to open up the camera angle, and I would like those of you who can stand easily and turn and aim your greeting to the cameras that are there by the clock, and that will put you in contact with our friends out there who have joined us via home or wherever they are watching and joining in the service today. So if you would, those of you who can turn and greet and smile and wave, welcome, buenos dias, buongiorno, however we need to reach you. Thank you, folks, for coming forward. It's hard. We're trying to see how far we reach to you, so it's great, as well as each other. You folks online have the chat to reach out to each other, and we trust you to do that. We know you announce yourselves to each other this morning. And you may be seated. So that was your 7th inning stretch before you even knew you needed it. There's one. I am Katie Tenike, your worship leader today. Mary provides our live music and our other shared music performances. John and Phyllis are back there in our tech booth to bring the tech wizardry and the connection to the outside world, as well as Sherry in the office, who also connects with those folks. And Bonna, thank you for greeting and bringing folks in today. Eric made the coffee. Thank you all for being part of the team today. Speaking today is our own Reverend Patty Pomerantz, bringing her thoughts on these weeks that lead us up to Easter season. She will invite us to take a deep look inside ourselves, where the revelations may include how interconnected we all are. So here in the chapel, things have changed again. Our chairs are returned, more of them. Our hymnals are returned, should be within reach of everyone. And we're going to pass the offering basket, I think still bringing it to everyone because you're spread. So please also, if you have a blue form in hand to share a joy and concern, put that in the offering basket when the time comes. Or if you filled out an announcement but didn't get it up to me yet, you can put that in the basket here. Opening words from Patty.
We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these old mountains that hold us steady to our ground, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place. The wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it is our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. At least 13,000 years of human beings, the Multnomah, Wasco, Wishram, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas bands of Chinook, and many other peoples have made their land, their lives here. And then came others, explorers, hunters, mountaineers, immigrants, settlers, farmers, families, missionaries, artists, business people, engineers, builders, scientists, teachers, workers, and leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their homes in this land, the ones here now, and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours.
Singing, Find Us Stillness is number 352 in the hymnal, the gray hymnal, and we will be accompanied and led by the musicians from the Kitsap UU congregation up in Bremerton. Please stand as you're able, and for our singers at home, words will be on the screen.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Might have recognized that it was from the Oregonian, front page on March 25th. And perhaps you even read the article last week. It was about a 10-year-old Ukrainian girl with chronic heart problems who, along with her family, escaped their home near Kiev. We know she's safe at the beginning of the article, but somehow that doesn't dull the impact of the story. Nearly half of Ukraine's children have left their home. 4.3 million children. Imagine being 10 years old with a heart condition, hearing bombs go off daily, sheltering in a damp basement, and a car with no heat. Imagine being so scared that your father risks his life to return to your apartment and rescue your pet hamster, your first ever pet, to calm you. Imagine being her parents, her grandmother, worrying about her heart, not knowing where they will go, arriving at the Polish border and not being able to cross over because Ukraine is not letting men between 18 and 60 leave the country in case they're needed to fight. Imagine the hopelessness they must feel after a month of watching their homes, their towns destroyed. And after all of this, imagine finding a field hospital right where you are, and by chance. That's how they found it. an Israeli field hospital where they could all regroup and the little girl could get treated, where the hamster is now a star and the little girl can play the piano to while away some of the time. How does a 10-year-old make sense of this? In 1 month, going from normal life to this. Will her family have to split up? What scars will she carry with her? It's a story with a happy ending, if there can be a happy ending when your homeland is being strafed for no apparent reason. And the little girl's response to all of this: I want peace for all Ukraine.
So we follow that with a lingering question, what can we do? And this brings us to our time for offering here in the service. Each Sunday when we are here, we pass a basket for Eastrose and all of its activities and supporting the program and the staff and bringing us this space and our ability to reach out to one another and even to activities with the community. And we know that beyond just that financial, in our own smaller but broader community, that we are sustained by the critical nature of the gift of our presence with one another, however it is that we come together. Eastrose is committed to extending your generosity into the community by sharing half of our cash in of the basket that we pass with our Sharing the Bounty partner. And this month, and the next two, April, May, and June, our partner is East County Rising Community Projects. East County Rising Community Projects is a grassroots organization that energizes East Multnomah County residents to create equitable, livable communities centered on the unrepresented and marginalized people that live with us and among us. Do check out their website. It is impressive and heartening and hopeful to see all the things that they are involved in. And then find your own ways. Otherwise, I think many of us have reached out to the other parts of the world where we can make contributions that help there also. Today, our chapel seating, once again, is bringing us a little bit closer, but we will still bring baskets to you as you're all spread out. We'll collect blue slips at the same time. For those of you who are viewing online and wish to participate in this offering time, the options are on the Eastrose website and also at our weekly Petals email. First-time visitors are always our guests. Please let the basket pass because your presence is the gift to us today. We are grateful for the spirit of generosity that thrives in so many forms. Generosity of time, talent, willingness to serve, and love. The gifts of the congregation will now be most gratefully received.
This is a very tender time to share joys and concerns. Our personal struggles and triumphs are given at a time when so much of the world suffers things most of us can only imagine, like Zlata Moisenko in the story. While others of us know firsthand what war does. So we share with one another. Let us leave room in our hearts for the children and their families in Ukraine, for all the areas of the world that are experiencing violence, flooding, or burning, or both. I want to share with you all that yesterday we had a wonderful final farewell for Dean Knox. Carol was here with her children and some of her family and many East Rosarians. And while it was sad to say goodbye, it was wonderful to remember. We have no other joys or concerns this morning, so as we always do, Mary will drop the heart stone into the water to represent all of those joys and concerns not spoken. Our hearts must expand to hold not just the joys and concerns we have shared, but also those unspoken ones, both in the congregation and throughout the earth that we share.
Let us join in singing Spirit of Life. You may be seated as we share this contemplation and music. Outside, inside. Outside, the flags fly down the highway, hanging onto the back of large trucks or the chest of a man. Outside, there is grabbing and taking, a staking and a re-staking of territory claimed, the roads cut, the oil burned, blockades erected, and walls built. Outside, the borders between us are made visible in noise, colors, ballots, signs, and signals. Inside resides the breath of common ancestors, the child who plays with no thought of malice, the heart tuned towards suffering, the taste of figs ripening in the lingering autumn heat, the sliver of an orange moon low in the evening November sky. Inside begins something you might call a prayer. Let us kneel down, not to God or nation or ideology, but to what is inside, a feeling, a connection, a welling like the waters at the very beginning of time, unpolluted and gently flowing, sweet and dark and healing. Let us kneel down to the persistent possibility that life and love within prevail. Let us release what is inside, outward in beauty, spilling toward each other until all merges. Unstoppable well of knowing that we will only ever be saved by one another.
What is Lent? And why am I talking about it? Lent is part of Easter, and for some reason, most Unitarian Universalists want to celebrate Easter. Except for Mary. Actually, every year, Mary and I prepare for Easter, and the first question is, why are we doing this? Is it the Easter egg hunt? The family dinner? Or is it because most Unitarian Universalists come out of some Christian tradition? Is it because you still have a relationship with Jesus or want a relationship with him? Or maybe it's because we need a celebration to mark the beginning of the growing season, and most of the world celebrates Easter. Many Christian holidays are part of our mainstream culture. Whatever the reason, Lent is part of Easter. And since you want to celebrate Easter, I want to explore what Lent offers Unitarian Universalists. Now, in my experience, there are only two kinds of holidays. Those you grew up with, if you were raised religiously, and those you didn't grow up with, which again, for some, is all holidays. Now, as most of you know, I grew up Jewish. I'm not even sure when I first knew what Lent was, and I'm still learning. Some of you grew up with some type of Christianity that may or may not have observed Lent. Whatever your personal experience, try to let go of it just for now. You may get a new insight. Holidays that occur around the same time in the calendar have similar metaphors. On Easter Sunday, I'll talk specifically about the connection between the Jewish holiday of Passover and Easter. But here's a couple of teasers. We know that Easter was competing with Passover. Many of the Christian holidays and practices were placed where they were in the calendar to diminish a pagan or Jewish holiday that happened at that same time. Passover celebrates the freeing of the Jews from bondage in Egypt, and we know that they spent 40 years in the wilderness. Could that be why Lent is 40 days long, from Ash Wednesday to Holy Thursday? Jesus was in the wilderness resisting Satan. The Jews were in the desert waiting for a new generation that hadn't been responsible for making an idol, while Moses was chatting with God, which, by the way, he did for 40 days and 40 nights. The number 40 actually appears 146 times in the Bible. I'm not going to tell you about the other 143. But it is always a significant number, and it usually is associated with a test from God. Now, it's not so prevalent now, but in the past, for most people who celebrate Lent, there was something given up during the 40 days before Easter. In early Christianity, Lent was marked by fasting and penance. You don't hear so much about Lenten fasts or giving something up. But I do remember when working with kids from the Jesuit Volunteer Corps at Habitat for Humanity, a young volunteer gave up wearing shoes for Lent to feel the suffering of those without. And no, I don't remember how she did it. But however you observe Lent, or not, it symbolizes the opportunity to reflect on your life, cleanse your heart, and prepare yourself for Jesus' ultimate sacrifice of his life. And of course, the Jewish celebration of Passover is marked by fasting. So too, Lent is a period of reflection and preparation. You could say both practices aim at putting us in right relationship with God. Which leads me to my first question. Because we Jews don't all believe in God, and because we don't have one defining theology, how do we do this? What right relationship can we seek together? Can we find a way that we can all feel comfortable with? Probably not. But I do have a suggestion. I have yet to find anyone who does not wrestle with the questions we don't have answers to, even as most religions, having a holy text, try to convince us that they do have those answers. But think about the questions that we all wonder about. What happens when we die? Are we alone in the galaxy? Why is there air? And who killed JR? If you get that last one, your age is showing. We may have differing theologies or no theology, but everyone has a spirituality, because these questions are spiritual questions. Because they don't have empirical answers, how we deal with them is through our hearts. And as far as I know, everyone has a heart. So Lent, if we choose to observe it, becomes a time to clear our hearts, even forgive ourselves. We may not have a theology to guide us, but does that mean we don't have anything religious in common? We have our principles and our congregational covenant. Could we all look at how we have behaved outside of the boundaries of those promises we make to one another? A covenant, after all, is a promise to be together with curiosity and a willingness to be changed. That is one of the primary differences between a covenant and a contract. So, in respect of those documents, can we ask and answer some questions together? Are there people we've hurt, physically or psychologically? Have we been responsible stewards of the earth's resources? Have we helped those in need? Or do we judge them unworthy, or worse, ignore them? These questions transcend our differing religious beliefs, even as they are religious questions. If everything you do passes through that innermost part of your heart, then you can say you're living in right relationship with whatever you want to call it: God, Spirit, Mystery, Buddha, Ostara. I use the word God not because I believe there's someone up there, although when I did believe that as a young child, that person up there looked amazingly like my rabbi. But because when I use the word, people know I'm talking about a part of myself that represents a connection beyond myself. I do believe that we are all interconnected. I describe it as an energy that lives within each of us and that connects us with one another and with the rest of the world. That energy doesn't really need a name unless you're trying to talk with someone else about it. And the name doesn't matter as much as what we think does. Why, rather than tapping into that common energy together, do we look at each other and see our different beliefs? Imagine if instead of doing that, we tapped into our common energy source, and our common values. Yesterday, we said goodbye to Dean Knox, who died almost 2 years ago in June. There were many remembrances, but they all had one thing in common. Dean was a man of consummate curiosity. That's why he was such a good Unitarian Universalist. Since so many UUs are uncomfortable around the Christian theology of Easter, we mostly use the metaphor of the garden, spring, flowers, and there were beautiful flowers here yesterday. Now that makes sense, since at the end of a long, dark winter, we all need something to look forward to. And since we know that Christianity borrowed heavily not just from Judaism, but from the pagan religious practices that they were trying to compete with, think Ostara and the celebration of the equinox, and the symbol of fertility we see her with, an egg, and her minions, the bunnies. Need I go on? It's just that there's more to it. It's a religious observance. And part of the benefit of Lent is that it gets us in the headspace to make our lives better. Taking inventory of who we are and how we behave is something that theologies give us. How do we do it without that in common? We can ask the same questions, but point them not toward a deity or entity, but to the core values we share. So for this Easter season, I'm going to invite us into that inventory by asking these questions. What are we doing to link our lives with others? Not just here at Eastrose, or even in Gresham, but how are we linked to little Zlata Moisenko of our story today? To the houseless campers who continue to proliferate in our neighborhood, to the violent protesters, to those who do not share our politics, who, by the way, are very likely among us here today, physically and virtually. Each of these groups either suffer from or create violence and separation. What are we doing to bring these people to our common table? And here's another way to look at it. Where are our lives going as Eastrose? You are about to embark on a time of transition. It's likely you'll hire 2 ministers in the next few years, first an interim to make sure that you've let go of me, and then a more permanent minister. The board will be sharing this process with you soon, I believe. Right, Richard? Okay. At the same time, we're recovering from the pandemic. You know you cannot go back. So you get to create yourself anew. I hope that Easter will see our families come back, and we're creating a ministry for them. Gone are the days of traditional children's religious education. We must minister to the whole family, and they need all of us to do that with them. Don't just let this happen. My wish is that everyone who is Eastrose participates in some way in this creative process. We have literally 2 new raised beds in the back for planting, a new swing set. We're recreating worship, membership, outreach, all of those things, as well as the administrative work the congregation is responsible for, the finance committee and the board. They all need your input, your participation. Remember that most people in leadership have just been through 2 years of pandemic hell, and they're tired. What will your role be? What will our new garden look like? Amen, and blessed be. And now our closing hymn, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers. It is number 63 in the gray hymnal, but the words will be up there.
Spring has now unwrapped the flowers, day is fast reviving, life in all her growing powers, toward the light is striving, from the iron touch of cold, springs the new leaf tender, bursting forth in green and gold, glory in its splendor. Herb and plant that winter long slumbered at their leisure, now be stirring green and strong, find in growth their pleasure. All the world with beauty fills, gold the green enhancing. Flowers make glee among the hills, set the meadows dancing.
Today, in the presence of this flaming chalice, we have welcomed one another and ventured a ways into ourselves. Strengthened, hopeful, we reemerge into the world. We extinguish the chalice, but not the shared light within. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace within and without.
May our hearts hold our flame and all it represents, especially love. As we are able to have compassion for others, we make the world a more compassionate place. May we share ours wholeheartedly.
Now announcements. Several things to share about events here in the congregation. Second Thoughts will begin to meet at Zoom on Sunday, April 10th, 9 a.m. We will be discussing the future direction of Eastrose. We need input from people outside of the board, and the members of the board will be present. So please join them on April 10th at 9 on Zoom, right before coming in. The Snowcap work party will be Thursday, April 14th, from 3 to 5. So this is our monthly service group getting together to help at Snowcap. 3 to 5 p.m., April 14th. Contact the office for more information. Everyone is encouraged to participate, and that's from Keene on the Outreach Committee. And I need to introduce Jean to come up and give us an announcement regarding the T-shirts. Here is the Eastrose T-shirt. There is the Eastrose T-shirt for you at home. And these are available, as I said last week, they're available for $10, this color, any size. The last day to order is this coming Friday, and there's an announcement in the petals about this also. You may tell me today, you may text my cell phone, or you may call my cell phone, and that number is in the petals. Don't try texting our home number, it won't work. This is a great shirt to wear when you're volunteering at Snowcap or other kinds of volunteer opportunities, or just for fun. This is a large. I've got a medium size here too, for those of you who are here, want to look at it. And I'm ready to take your orders. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you. Next Sunday's service will feature as speaker Dr. Seth Moran, and he will speak on the spiritual practice of risk perception. Cynthia, who's here, will be his worship leader, so if you have any pre-questions on what he's going to do with that, ask her today. This concludes our service. Folks here in the chapel can now visit and enjoy coffee and tea. Folks online have perhaps been doing that while they watch the service today. But you can join in cafe conversation, link up and chat by going to the link in the chat or going to the Eastrose website on our weekly Petals email for that link. So